one of our pilots is to have an ethical screening of the internal research programs. So I don't know how well you know Fraunhofer. It's an applied research organization, so most of our research is through clients. But we save money every year, and lots of money actually, to put it into things that we think that are going to be important for the future, to build up new research lines. And so this is called internal programming. And so it's a lot of money every year, and it's selected according to criteria, what is most promising. And so what we want to do is to already in this early phase to have an ethical review of all the things we do in internal programming. And of course we have to heavily negotiate with the actors that are responsible for the internal programming. They don't want anybody to interfere. I mean, we have convinced them now, but then every time we really want to do it, we have to negotiate even for us to look at these internal programs, because they are secret. We have to negotiate who is allowed to look at them and stuff like this. And so it's the same in every. I mean, for open access, there's not so much negotiation internally because everybody agrees. But in gender, for example, gender and content, there's hardly any awareness that there needs to be done something. So we had to argue with central people that this is also important. And societal engagement, definitely, there we start from practically zero. We have to negotiate with everybody except a few pioneers.
And this is something that is impacting not negatively, but is affecting, let's say, the Jerry project, or?
But we expected this. I mean, it's a change process. We expected negotiation, and up to now, it's not only negative in the sense that we're always getting no. So, on the contrary, we're getting a lot of support. But of course, it takes up a lot of energy.
Okay. Also because.
And then people change, and you negotiate with one, and then it turns out there's a new one, and one of the important contact point left recently, and for the ethics programming, and so
And these negotiations are mostly informal, or do you manage to keep them formal? Let's say in a workshop. Could you describe?
It's informal. For example, in this case I described about internal programming, the negotiation was actually in one of the Jerry workshops. We had the most important guy who was doing this there, and he agreed on the vision, and then we started developing the roadmap and really formally documented within the workshop. He said, okay, you can do it for the next year. And there it was part of the process. But in other cases, it's more that something is done in a workshop, for example, by the core actors, and then with the results, we go again to other actors that need to do something about it and negotiate with them bilaterally. So it's different from case to case. That's very different at TNO, by the way. In TNO, all the things that are in the workshop are directly with the board, and then they happen. So it's that's not possible in our organization. I mean, to talk to the boss of Fraunhofer, this is something you experience once in your life or something. This is not realistic. Maybe our goal is that he will maybe come to the final conference or something. Of course, he knows about the project. It's officially announced and everything. But for them, they have. This is so big. But in TNO, that's very different. But it has also drawbacks, because it means also that if something is done in such a workshop, in Jerry workshop in TNO, afterwards it's company policy. They have it in their KPIs or something. And then if it's not so much in line with the Commission policy, they were, for example, a bit scared in the midterm report that their goals would not be accepted. Then what to do? The company has already adopted it. So, but fortunately the Commission was very supportive, but yeah. Mm-hmm. But of course then if it's, if the company rejects something, it's also not possible. For example, open access was not very well accepted in TNO at the beginning. Mm-hmm. So it looked like they can't do anything in open access. Now it's changed. But, yeah. And they managed to do this very openly, I would say, in a formal way through workshop, etc. Yeah, that's what they wanted to do it the usual way, mm-hmm. but it turned out there was no support. Mm-hmm. So they canceled the workshop mm-hmm. because if they do something like this, it's immediately on the highest level. Mm-hmm. For us, it's different. For example, in societal engagement, we have resistance. It's not something very popular at our bosses. But okay, so we do something with Umsicht, one of our 70 institutes. They do something really nice, and maybe it will spread bottom up. Mm-hmm. But that's not an option in TNO because they're centrally organized. So if they do something, it needs to be on top level. Okay. They cannot do something small in one of the departments. So. Mm-hmm. Okay. So, for what, I don't know if, I would like to ask you something about self-reflexivity, because you told me that it's one of the barriers is exactly to have space to self-reflect on what is going on. Self-reflexivity is also important for you as the leader of not of the jury project, but of the action plan and activities in the within Fraunhofer organization. So, how you practice self-reflexivity in order to understand how to better steer the project, to assess what is going on, what is not going on, how to improve your activities, etc. Do you have a specific management arrangement for doing this? Is something more informal? How do you have an internal meeting of the core team? Do you have a core team implementing the project? How you organized? Yeah. Yeah, well, for one, IHS has this function. So they come to every workshop and they observe it and make notes, and afterwards they distribute the questionnaire and send the results to us, and they talk to us after every activity, and also they talk to the others, and then they summarize what the others said. So they really help us to keep up this reflexivity level. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, in our team, I mean, this is for Foresight, this is very important for all the processes we are doing, because there's always a bit of change in the person involved. Mm-hmm. So we practice this kind of debriefing sessions after every workshop, and immediately think what could we have done better, and we always do an open feedback also in addition to the closed questionnaires. Mm-hmm. But it is true. It's in such a project where you work on your own organization, it's even more demanding than in other processes. Because some things, they affect myself, my own work. The gender dimension, for example. Mm-hmm. I realized that the research we are doing here at my institute, it's really not gender sensitive, and we are partly not respecting the good practices in this area.